Hello, my name is Matthias. Welcome to the FPL Scope and the FPL Latest for Game Week 34. And it's not really the whole of Game Week 34 because that's a double game week and we still haven't finished all the fixtures in that game week, mainly the double game week teams that are still left to play. And also Chelsea playing against Arsenal, for example, later today, and also Man City against Brighton on Thursday. So we have a couple more matches left to go, but I'm going to talk about the games that we've seen so far and talk through the main talking points of this video. And I'm going to slightly touch, not too much, but I'm going to talk a little bit about Free Hit 34 and versus Free Hit 29 and stuff, because there's obviously been a huge development in that whole ordeal, that whole discussion. Pretty big pro Game Week 34 wildcard argument now made this week, especially by Crystal Palace, but we'll touch more on that later on in the video. But also I'm going to make a separate video just comparing the two game weeks and the weeks between as well, looking at how the best managers of the second half of the season have done basically through these game weeks, whether they've used the free hit in 29 or in 34, and see how many points they've gained compared to each other and stuff. So that video is going to come out on Thursday. I'm pretty much looking forward to doing that video. I'm going to look through the top 100 teams in the second chance league and see how they've navigated these game weeks when it comes to free hit and not free hit in these game weeks as well. There might be some other teams that don't have free hit 29 or free hit 34 at all as well. So it will be interesting to see the data on that and see how the teams have fared compared to each other. Both in those particular game weeks and also in the game weeks between and before and after as well. So look for that on Thursday. But on this video today, we're going to talk about the games that have happened already in Game Week 34, starting with the game between Luton and Brentford, which is basically one of the types of games you would see in Game Week 29. One like low potential games, as people said. That was one of the reasons people didn't like free hit in 29, because there were a lot of teams that don't really have that many interesting FPL assets. One of them being Brentford. Actually, both these teams had a game week in Game Week 29 compared to most other teams. And a lot of people went for Brentford and Luton players on free hit 29, but really neither of those teams really provided any points. But in this game, especially Brentford assets, not really any Luton assets, but a lot of Brentford assets actually returned and did really, really well. First and foremost from this fixture, the most notable thing is once again, Tony was left out of the Brentford squad. For me, it looks pretty clear and obvious to me that the VAR, clear and obvious check, that Tony is going to leave Brentford at some point in the summer, basically. And it seems like Brentford just trying to accommodate that reality that they're going to be in next season without Tony and see how they can fare without Tony in the league. And in this game, this was a resounding positive game for Brentford with 5-1 win against Luton away. We've heard about Luton at home being a much better home side than away side. They have been kind of impressive this season compared to what we expected. We expected them to go down easily, but they're still fighting and trying, or at least trying to stay up. But it's not looking so good after this game especially. But Brentford didn't really need Tony. What they needed was Mbeumo back. He's been absolutely amazing. He's one of the most underrated players, I think, in the whole league. And he was really instrumental in this game as well, sending up loads of chances and being just a really good player for Brentford in general. He set up the first two goals, or at least the first goal for Jan Vissa, who scored a really, really nice goal as well. Really nice strike by him on the first goal for Brentford. And yeah, they just looked really, really good from that point on, Brentford in general. They also had the Reguilon goal that we didn't get, or the Reguilon assist that we didn't get in Game Week 29. He had a beautiful cross to Pinnock, who was out injured in that game week in Game Week 29. But he was at the end of a corner from Reguilon, who had a really good game in general. There's a reason why people liked him for free 29, but he ended up getting a red card and -3 points in that game. This game, he did get an assist and almost got the clean sheet, but Luton did score towards the end to delete that clean sheet for Brentford and all those defenders. But yeah, Mbeumo was really good. Reguilon was really good. Jan Vissa obviously really, really good with 2 goals. Mikkel Damsgaard has been much better now with Brentford lately as well. Lewis Potter is coming into form again. Kevin Schade is back in scoring and stuff. So Brentford are looking a lot better now, especially considering they are going without Tony. And with Tony in the side for a lot of these past game weeks, the past like 10 game weeks, they've looked like not that good. But now without Tony, they looked really, really good. So that's a good sign for Brentford. Still, both Luton and Brentford don't really have any double game weeks left. They are also two pretty poor teams, so you don't really want to target any players from these teams specifically. But Brentford, there is a case to be made for someone like Mbeumo. Even though they only have single game weeks, he could be a nice differential for those game weeks. Yeah, you don't necessarily need, especially if you don't have bench boosts, for example, you don't necessarily need 15 bench boosts or 15 double game week players in Game Week 37. So someone like Mbeumo could be an interesting option. in those game weeks. But just for next season, I think Mbeumo is going to be another terrific pick. We know how good he is without Tony. He showed that again in this game, and I think he's someone that's going to be really popular from game week 1 next season as well, like it was this year. On penalties, he's going to be without Tony as well, and he's just been a fantastic player for Brentford throughout their whole Premier League campaign, basically. So he's going to be someone to watch for next season, especially, but maybe even towards the end of the season, the final 4 game weeks, maybe he's someone you could consider potentially as well. But yeah, Brentford, pretty decisive win over Luton there. It's looking not so good for Luton, even with some VAR help potentially in the Forest Everton game, which we'll get to soon as well. Still looking unlikely that they will be staying up, because losing 5-1 at home to Brentford is not really a good sign for you if you want to stay up in the Premier League this season, because Brentford haven't really been that good this season, but they looked like $1 million against Luton and deservedly won the match 5-1 with total dominance in the expected goal numbers as well. And that's a bit of a different thing to what happened in the game between Sheffield United and Burnley, which is the second game I'm going to talk about in this game week. Because in the expected goals battle, Sheffield United actually beat Burnley with 2.43 expected goals for Sheffield United and 2.18 for Burnley. But still, the score ended up being 4-1 for Burnley in this game, which was really, really interesting. Sheffield United actually had a lot of good chances. Muric in the goal for Burnley was absolutely amazing, had 10 saves in total. Got some bonus points as well, I think, for that, and got a really good score despite conceding against Sheffield United. Basically, he kept Burnley in striking distance early, saving some big chances from McBurney and Burton Diaz, two slightly popular assets for those that free hit it, especially. But Burnley stayed on the attack after that, got 2 pretty lucky goals, 2 deflection goals basically, that they scored from, and that gave them a little bit of a lead. Gustavo Hamer scored a really nice goal for Sheffield United. He was also another slightly less interesting pick, or a slightly less popular pick than Burton Diaz, especially for the free hits, but he scored a really nice goal, showed his qualities, showed why he's still like a Premier League quality player with a really nice goal. But after that, again, Burnley took over and scored 2 pretty nice goals actually to end the match for them with 4-1 in total. So really good game for Burnley, not so good game for Sheffield United. But again, this is not really that relevant when it comes to FPL, because it's 2 teams that are most likely going down for next season. Both teams don't have double game weeks coming up. They don't really have that good fixtures either. So yeah, for FPL wise, it doesn't really matter that much. But there are some nice players that could potentially stay in the league. For example, like Gustavo Hamer. So he might be a nice, decent player for next season. Lyle Foster as well for Burnley. He also looks decent. Maybe David Fofana will play for Chelsea next season, but he was also benched to start this game. Assignon actually had a really good game for Burnley. I haven't really seen anything from him this season that has convinced me that he's like a Premier League quality type of player. But in this game, he actually looked really good. So maybe he's a sneaky option for someone to buy in the summer from Premier League teams. But all in all, this is basically just a glorified championship fixture, because both of these teams are going down for sure. Burnley looking a bit more set for going straight back up again next season with this win. But it was a pretty tight affair compared to what the score actually was. Really high XG for both teams, to be honest, 2.43 compared to 2.18 for Burnley. So could easily ended up being a draw, but Sheffield United just weren't clinical enough and couldn't score. And especially that's a downside for those of you guys with Burton Diaz in your teams. But I think he has a decent chance against Man United in the second game of the double game week as well for Sheffield United. That's why he was kind of a popular pick. Playing against Man United, I think they have a decent chance of scoring in that game, and Burton Diaz could easily be on the scoring sheet in that game. So don't lose hope if you still have him. I think he is not the worst pick either. I think obviously you have someone like Olise who's right there at around the same price, who ended up doing much better than him. But I think Burton Diaz was a nice punt for anyone that went for him. But yeah, the game week isn't over yet. Maybe he can turn it around and give you some joy, at least in this double game week, if you have selected Burton Diaz yourself. Next up was the game between Wolverhampton and Arsenal, and this was kind of a standard Arsenal game this season mostly. At least at the start of the season, Arsenal weren't really that good offensively, didn't really get things clicking, but at the same time, they've been also really good defensively this whole season, and that's what they were against Wolves. Didn't really get any chances come against them at all for Wolves, except for this one big chance where Joao Gomez came through on the right. Again, pretty poor from Kivior. I think he's been pretty poor lately for Arsenal. He was basically one of the main reasons they lost to Bayern in the Champions League, Kivior, who has actually been like an admirable player this season, been pretty good in stretches for Arsenal, but lately he's kind of faltered, and he sort of gave a chance away to Joao Gomez and Wolverhampton. But a brilliant save from David Raya kept Arsenal in with the draw there. That was at 0-0, where Joao Gomez could have easily scored for Wolves, but that was basically the only chance that Wolverhampton had. As you can see, 0.17 XG is absolutely nothing. Arsenal are just so good defensively, but they did struggle offensively this game. 1.18 expected goals, not the best. Didn't really create too many chances. But then finally they got the goal that they wanted from a shot from Leandro Trossard across to the back post for Gabriel Jesus, who again shows that he's a better assister than a goal scorer, because he's a really poor finisher, but he's also really good at setting up other players, and he showed some of his qualities there. Despite falling to the ground, he was able to pass the ball through to Trossard, who had a pretty lucky strike that went perfectly into the top corner for Arsenal and gave them the lead 1-0. And at that point, it's basically just Arsenal's game to safe in and get just 3 easy points against Wolverhampton, who struggled a lot with not so many players left. They had Hwang Hee-chan starting, but that was basically the only main guy they had left starting. Cunha is out for this game. He's probably going to be out for their second game as well. Aït-Nouri was out for the start of this game as well. And they really struggled against a really good defensive Arsenal side. So in the end, I think this was pretty much just a single game week for Wolverhampton. They obviously have one more game left to play against Bournemouth. They could score some nice points there. But against Arsenal, it just shows you when you play Arsenal, you don't really have that much of an advantage when it comes to the double game week, because Arsenal are just so good defensively. It's going to be really tough to score against them, and it's going to be really hard to keep a clean sheet against them as well. They usually score at least 1 goal. So I think if Arsenal is one of your double game week teams that you're playing against, I don't think you have that big of an advantage compared to someone that has a really good fixture in a single game week. So that proved to be the case here for Wolves assets, because not any Wolves asset at all basically got any points from this game. When it comes to Arsenal, Raya, as I mentioned, had a brilliant save to keep out the Joao Gomez chance. And he ended up with 3 saves in total and getting that 1 save point, and also getting 3 bonus points from this game as well. So huge for anyone with Raya on their team, including myself. So I'm pretty happy about that. After a couple game weeks where Dubravka outscored him, he finally delivered, and he still has 1 more chance left to go against Chelsea later tonight. So you probably watched this game already if you're seeing this video. But yeah, David Raya looked really good. Offensively, Arsenal didn't really do much, but Ødegaard also managed to get on the score sheet towards the end of the game. Really nice drive of the ball for Declan Rice. Passed it on to Havertz, I think, and then Havertz passed it to Ødegaard, who shot it, and the shot was saved. Ødegaard got the ball back, and he basically did a really sneaky finish towards the near post that beat out Jose Sa and gave Ødegaard some bonus points and some really nice fill points in general if you picked him, whether it was on a free hit or through free transfers. It was a really nice moment for Ødegaard and all of the players or the managers in FPL that have Ødegaard. So 2-0 for Arsenal. The defense, again, is a standout for Arsenal. It seems like doubling up on Arsenal defense, especially now if Palmer is out against Chelsea. I'm going to get the news about Chelsea starting lineup pretty soon, actually, as I'm recording this. But it's looking pretty good for Arsenal in the double game week. But that's famous last words again before they face their London rival Chelsea. But yeah, first game at least was really good for Arsenal, especially defensively. And I think that gives you another case of why you should consider guys like Gabriel, Saliba, Ben White, David Raya, even on a wildcard in Game Week 35. I still think Arsenal defenders are going to be really, really good and get some extra points for the end of the season. And they show that in this game against Wolverhampton, basically. Next game up, we have Everton against Nottingham Forest, and I did mention VAR and some potential help for Luton and Everton specifically, because the big talking point in this game, which has been especially more of a big news story since Nottingham Forest put out an official statement talking about the game and the VAR decisions in this game, it's the fact that they could have had 3 penalties in this game. I think especially the last one where Ashley Young basically just tackles down, barges down a Nottingham Forest player. I can't remember exactly who it was. Definitely should have been a penalty. I don't know how they managed to check that and not give a penalty. It was the clearest one of the day, I think. And after getting those 2 dubious calls against them earlier in the game, I'm kind of shocked that they didn't get a penalty against them. But that was the benefit for Everton. They managed to get through the game without conceding. And when you look at the expected goals, that's not really that big of a deal, because they had only 0.95 expected goals conceded. You can also see they also produced only 0.34 expected goals. And they managed to still get 2 goals because they had 2 really nice strikes. Kind of lucky, but still pretty nice strikes from Idrissa Gana Gueye and Dwight McNeil. Both of them along the ground, hitting the post and in, basically. So really unlucky for Forest, especially considering they should have had at least 2, maybe even 3 penalties in this game, I think. The first one was just a pretty easy kick on the leg from Ashley Young, who was actually involved in all 3 penalty situations. I think that should have been a penalty. Second one was a handball where referees are basically 50-50 whether they give that call or not. We've seen some handballs, like the Grealish one in the FA Cup, not being given, which was a much clearer handball than this even. We've seen stuff like that not given. But then we see Man United concede a penalty against Coventry from a handball similar to this one with Ashley Young. And also the one, especially the one Bournemouth got against them, against Man United, was just not really a penalty, especially when stuff like this is not given as a penalty. So easily could have been 3 penalties for Nottingham Forest. They got 0 in total. I understand their frustration. I still think it's kind of weird to do these big statements, but it's neither here or there. It doesn't really matter for FPL. Forest in general, they do have some nice fixtures towards the end of the season, not immediately because they have a tough fixture now in Game 35, but after that they have some nice fixtures. And Wood and Gibbs White have actually been really good to end this season, just as Gibbs White and Awani were at the end of last season. So there are some interesting options there potentially if you're looking at something like that, but having only single game weeks left for Nottingham Forest, they're not really a team you should target at all. So yeah, I'd probably stay away from Wood and Gibbs White, but if you do have them still in your squad and you don't have a wildcard, for example, you could easily just keep them because I do think they have some nice game weeks to go for the rest of the season, especially as they're fighting against relegation and to stay up in this league. But a huge win for Everton, all in all, and a huge point scores for the likes of Pickford, Branthwaite, Tarkowski, Mikolenko. Some of those guys were popular on the free hit as well. So credit to anyone that has them in their team because they managed to get away from this game with a clean sheet, and it was really nice for Everton, who are still struggling to create chances, still struggling to score goals. They still managed to get 2 goals in this game and get a clean sheet and 3 massive points. But I feel for Nottingham Forest who had a couple of penalty shots where they really should have been able to get a penalty in this game, but that's just what happens sometimes. Aston Villa against Bournemouth, and this sort of ended up the way you expect. Bournemouth were good enough to score 1 goal. They got a penalty pretty early in the game. Milos Kerkers, who was one of the downsides to double game week 28 for Bournemouth, he actually won the penalty this time for Solanke. We can remember Solanke, speaking of that double game week in 28, he did miss the penalty from slipping, but this time around he was pretty self-confident in his shot and basically struck it into the top corner. Emi Martinez was actually after the penalty but couldn't save it because Solanke just had the precision and the power enough to beat one of the best penalty savers in the whole world basically as a goalkeeper. So nice goal for Solanke, and one that kept faith in him. He still has 1 more match obviously against Wolverhampton. You can see we'll get to see what happens there. But a nice start to the game for Bournemouth, but then Aston Villa took over and just showed their quality, especially now that they have Morgan Rogers in the team as well. I think it's been a huge addition to Aston Villa this season. Been really, really good. Both Diaby and Bailey got to start at the same time this game, and they've been really good together, I think, in this whole season. So I think they should get more playing time. The main man in this game is obviously Ollie Watkins, who was absolutely amazing once again, getting a lot of points yet again, as he has done for basically all game weeks this season. He's the highest scoring player in the whole game this season, gotten a lot of goal returns and just keeps it up consistently. He's still a player you could consider to have for the end of the season. I know I regret selling him for Darwin Núñez in Game 31 because, that has not been a good return on investment for me. But yeah, Watkins was the main beneficiary of this game as well. Obviously, Bailey did score nicely. Diaby had some nice points as well. But Watkins basically set up both the last 2 goals. The second goal especially was really nicely set up by Watkins, doing a nice little double move. I think he did like a sort of Ronaldo chop sort of thing and then passed it in towards the goal for Bailey, I think. And then finally he ended a pretty nice Aston Villa attack by passing it in towards the box for Diaby. So he fed both of those wingers and gave them some really nice goals as well. Watkins has just been amazing and again showed his worth in this game, helping Aston Villa secure a 3-1 win, which is going to be vital for them in the chase for number 4 spot in the league, which is going to give you Champions League. It doesn't seem like 5th place is going to give you Champions League anymore in the Premier League, so that's going to be a big battle for Aston Villa, and they're going to have a lot to play for the end of the season. But they obviously have the Europa League fixtures still, or the Conference League fixtures to attend to as well. They do have 2 semi-final fixtures before the final, potentially. So rotation is still a potential issue. They also don't have any double game weeks, so you probably should stay away from Aston Villa in general. But if you want to keep a hold of Watkins still, I don't blame you because he's been so fantastic this whole season and you probably should have had him the whole season. I know he's a really popular player in Game Week 1, and if you kept him for Game Week 1 until now, you might as well finish the season off with him because he's just been absolutely fantastic this whole year, this whole Premier League campaign. So hats off to Watkins. He again and again proves why he's so much better than Darwin Núñez. And the fact that people are comparing them as like comparable strikers, Watkins is clear of Darwin by far for me. Not just in FPL, but in real life too. So hats off to Aston Villa. Really nice game for them. Solanke did get some points at least for those with Bournemouth or with him in their team, basically. But it was always going to be a tough game away at Villa Park now. Even though Aston Villa played 120 minutes in the Conference League on Thursday, they still managed to do really well. Speaking of playing minutes in a game on Thursday, we have West Ham, who just absolutely collapsed in the weekend after losing to Leverkusen and being knocked out of the conference or the Europa League in midweek. They faced a pretty set and ready Crystal Palace team in this game. Palace with Olise back, Eze back, and Mateta playing really, really well. Munoz coming in as a right back, being a really nice addition to their team. Glasner obviously taking over the team a couple months ago at this point, and finally getting the team to tick perfectly, especially with his main man back. We've seen this whole season, Eze and Olise put together are going to be really good together, and with Mateta also coming into form now, that trio was absolutely outstanding in this game, and all of them got double-digit hauls in this game. So anyone that free-hitted and had triple Palace attack with those three guys must have been a fantastic gaming for you so far, and they still have that one more game against Newcastle left to play. But against West Ham, just complete domination from the start, 4-0 up, I think, after 32 minutes or something like that. Just a complete masterclass from Palace. They did concede, however, so anyone with Crystal Palace defenders should feel pretty sad about this game, especially those with Munoz, who had a pretty good chance to score, where Emerson Palmieri scored an own goal instead. That was basically the one goal that Palace, the main Palace targets, didn't really get any points, because that was Will Hughes assisting and Munoz almost getting the goal, but Emerson getting in ahead of him and scoring an own goal instead. So yeah, bad luck for Munoz owners who didn't really get any points from him, and especially bad luck from anyone with Henderson in goal. Because not only did he concede twice, the second goal he conceded was also an own goal from him, a pass back from Tyler Mitchell, and just a really bad judgment from Henderson trying to stop the ball. And the ball just went past his foot. He barely touched it enough to get an own goal, and then -1 point from this game, which was a huge game for Crystal Palace and anyone with Crystal Palace assets, especially offensively. But yeah, all in all, Mateta scoring, having assists. Eze was absolutely amazing in this game, as he usually is when they are all fully fit. He's going to have a really big breakout season next year. I think Crystal Palace players, I think this is a taste of what to come for next season. But for anyone that free-hitted this week, obviously huge score for them. Really nice for Palace to face a West Ham team who were kind of defeated and deflated after losing to Leverkusen. Putting their all into that game against Leverkusen. I was actually at that game. I was in London for that game and watched it at the stadium. West Ham played amazing in that game, but they used basically all their powers in that game. Still didn't have any centre-backs for this game as well. Obviously, Aguerd had to be subbed off early in that game against Leverkusen. He didn't play. Ogbonna was playing next to Zuma in this game, and Crystal Palace took full advantage of both Mavropanos and Aguerd being out, and also Areola being out still in goal, because Fabianski had a pretty poor game in general in this game. So just a huge score for Palace players, huge game for them, and a game to not remember for West Ham, who are now looking for a new manager for sure. All the recent rumors about Ruben Amorim from Sporting, it doesn't seem like that's going to be likely to happen for West Ham, but I think West Ham can really also be a really nice team to watch for next season if they get a new really good manager. So both these teams are going to be really interesting to watch for next season. For the end of the season, not so much. Maybe a Palace attacker. Maybe you want to go with someone like Eze still, because with Eze and Olise together, they're absolutely amazing. So if both of those guys can stay fit for the end of the season, I wouldn't mind having some of those players for the rest of the season as well. Mateta as well is a nice, cheaper option in attack as well if you want to keep riding his high as well. But yeah, Palace 5-2, absolutely amazing score for their attacking players, and a game to forget for West Ham, basically. Then the final game of the game week was Fulham against Liverpool, and this was kind of what you'd expect between these two teams. You can't really expect much from Fulham, or can't really expect one way or the other from Fulham, because they've been really tough to gauge this whole season. Sometimes they can win 5-0 in games that you wouldn't expect them to win. Other times they can lose against easier teams. But this game against Liverpool, you expect them to sort of give Liverpool a fight, but still manage to lose, and that's what happened in this game as well. Liverpool scored the first goal. Trent Alexander-Arnold was back in the starting lineup. It seems like there's going to be no issues for him, so anyone that went for him. I sadly myself went for Virgil van Dijk rather than Trent. I was really close to picking Trent, but just the bad experiences I've had with Trent so far this season and the good experiences I've had with Van Dijk this season, maybe I go with Van Dijk over Trent, but that was a mistake, because Trent had a pretty good chance to get an assist early on, crossed it into Luis Diaz, who once again struggled to finish and headed it outside. That didn't end up being a goal, but he got a free kick opportunity. Trent Alexander-Arnold did from a pretty good position, and he managed to score that free kick. Brilliant free kick from him, as we've seen from him in the past. And the free kick was won by Diogo Jota, who's another really nice differential pick for this game, as we get to see later on in the game. But right before the half, Fulham struck back, had a really nice bombardment of chances towards the Liverpool goal, basically. That was pretty much everything that Fulham had, that one chance, or that one chance that resulted in a goal for Fulham. But yeah, had several strikes towards the target, and finally they managed to get the ball past Alisson, who's just, again, had a pretty good game for Liverpool, and made sure that Fulham didn't get any more goals than that. But Fulham equalized, got 1-1 before the half, and it looked pretty dangerous for Liverpool. But then Ryan Gravenberch, who's had a testing and troubling season for Liverpool this season, he actually showed some of his brilliance, getting a really nice strike in and getting the 2-1 lead for Liverpool. And then towards the end, Diogo Jota managed to beat the offside trap from Fulham, got sent through in goal, and managed to score just as he was about to be subbed off. So huge haul for Jota, winning the free kick for Trent, and then also scoring a goal. Huge haul for him, but now he's injured again, obviously, because that's what happens with Jota. He comes back, looks absolutely amazing, and then he gets injured. But still a pretty good score of 12 points, I think, for anyone that's punted on Diogo Jota this week, with either the free hits or a free transfer this week. So huge score for him, huge score from Trent as well, getting 9 points despite Liverpool conceding. Apart from that, not much happened for Liverpool. The other big thing about this game also, and for Liverpool, is the fact that Salah was benched. Really a huge surprise to most of us, and a lot of us had him as captain as well, so didn't really get any points from that. He did come on and get 1 point, and had one really big chance to get an assist at least. Passed it towards Darwin Núñez, but for once it was actually Núñez, or the Salah pass that was inaccurate and not Darwin Núñez's shot. But I think if the pass was accurate, Darwin probably would have found a way to miss the chance as well. But both those guys got 1 point only. Didn't start the game, came on and didn't really do much towards the end of the match, apart from that one chance that they had where Salah could have passed it better to Núñez. But both of them are most likely going to start this next game for Liverpool, so maybe some points for anyone with those guys left, me included. So I'm hoping for them to return to goods. But Trent and Diogo Jota especially did really well so far, getting a goal each, and Jota winning the free kick for Trent Alexander-Arnold on top of that as well. So that's basically it for the game week. Fulham, don't really have much to say about them. Rodrigo Muniz obviously is going to be an interesting player for next season. Interesting to see how he's going to be priced and if he's going to be the starting striker for Fulham. I'm going to assume so, but maybe he gets a big move to a bigger club. That could also happen. But yeah, not really too much to talk about with Fulham. When it comes to Liverpool, Trent Alexander-Arnold is a big story. He's another player that you could potentially save for the end of the season and have. It would be a nice differential, but at the same time, he's pretty expensive. And jumping on the boat with him for this game was probably the bigger chance for you than jump on the bandwagon now, because I don't think it's going to be that good for the end of the season, especially if Liverpool go out of the chances of winning the league as well, because yeah, Liverpool sort of just seem a bit defeated as well. Doesn't look like they're going to get anything other than the League Cup in the final season for Klopp, so a bit of a downer there for them, and they're also still looking for a new manager, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens with them next season as well, I think. But that's basically it for this game week in terms of the games that have happened so far. I'm not going to do a video on the rest of the games because that's going to be more, the rest of the week is going to be more occupied by other videos, other things that I have to go and get through. First up on the agenda for the video tomorrow is going to be the weekly wildcard draft, where I'm going to look at my current wildcard draft, because I'm wildcarding this week, obviously, Gaming 35 myself, wildcarding with the view of bench boosting Game 37. So I do have a wildcard draft for now, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens, obviously, with Nicholas Jackson in the game today. If he gets the yellow card, he's going to be off the table because he's going to be suspended for 2 games. But if he gets away from this game without a yellow card, he's going to be a big option still. So a lot of things to discuss. Maybe we'll discuss some Liverpool players as well, because they do have some interesting players potentially for the next game week, especially against West Ham. There could be a lot of goals in that game, so I'm not so sure about selling all my Liverpool assets on the wildcard, but we'll talk about that for sure. That's going to come in the video tomorrow. Also, like I said at the start of this video, I'm going to make the video about comparing Game Week 34 and Game Week 29 free hitters and see how they did comparatively among the best and most successful managers this season, or at least towards the end of the season, and see how they managed these game weeks and how they've done, and see if there's actually a big disadvantage to have free hitted in 29, or if it actually equals out when you count all the game weeks together and look at it as a whole. But for now, especially on just the eye test and on paper, it seems more likely that free hit 34 players have gotten a bigger advantage than the ones that free hit in 29, but it'll be interesting to see the numbers, I think, and it's going to be a pretty interesting video, I think. Now finally, on Friday, I'm going to have the team selection video where I'm going to have the updated wildcard draft, which is going to be my latest draft by my own team, and also take a look at the manager of the week and see how they've done this past week and what they can do for next week. And also take a look at the potential free hit team if you're free hitting in 35, if that's in your interest as well. So that will all be coming up this week. I hope you will watch those videos as well, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time we do a video. Hopefully, if you subscribe, that would be the easiest. But that's it for me, basically. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.